The United States had just beaten Bosnia and Herzegovina 2-0, their first World Cup knockout win in 24 years. Their players sang in the locker room. Their fans celebrated in the streets of Santa Clara. A nation that had been building toward this moment for years was finally here. Finally in the round of 16. Finally believing. And in the middle of all of it, their best player was sitting alone in the dressing room. Not celebrating. Processing. Staring at the reality of what had just happened in the 64th minute. Folarin Balogun had scored the goal that started everything. He had led the tournament with 3 goals in 4 matches. He was the most dangerous American player on the pitch, the one opponent defenders had been game planning around for weeks. And now he cannot play against Belgium. Not because he was injured, not because he chose to rest, because a referee, advised by VAR, decided that a challenge most people watching described as accidental was something else entirely. And because the rules FIFA operates under mean that decision cannot be challenged, overturned, or appealed in any form that would allow him to play on Monday. One decision. One moment in the 64th minute. And it may have changed the entire direction of America's World Cup. But to understand why that moment landed the way it did, you need to understand what Balogun meant to this team and what this team meant to this country before the red card was ever shown. The United States arrived at the 2026 World Cup carrying the specific weight of a host nation that cannot afford to be eliminated early. This is their tournament. These are their stadiums. The opening ceremonies and the fan zones and the promotional language of unprecedented inclusion had all been built around an implicit promise that the host nations would give their own people something to celebrate deep into the competition. Canada had done it, reaching the round of 16 after their historic 6-0 win over Qatar. Mexico had done it, advancing with the force of everything the Azteca represents. The United States needed to do it too, and they had Balogun to lead them there. The 23-year-old born in London to Nigerian and American parents, who had chosen to represent the United States over England, who had spent years developing in Europe before this World Cup became the stage where the choice to play for the Stars and Stripes was definitively justified. 3 goals in the group stage, starting every match, leading the line with a combination of movement, technical quality, and finishing instinct that had made him the most talked about American player at a World Cup since Landon Donovan. Mauricio Pochettino had built his team's attacking identity around Balogun's specific qualities. The ability to finish when the chances came. The United States' entire forward structure was calibrated to what Balogun does and how he does it. Against Bosnia, he did it again. A fine finish late in the first half, his 3rd goal of the tournament. The goal that settled the nerves inside Levi Stadium and set America on the path to the round of 16. And then came the 64th minute. The challenge itself was not violent in the way that football's worst challenges are violent. It was not a 2-footed lunge, it was not a raised elbow, or a deliberate act of aggression. Balogun and Bosnian defender Tarik Muharimovic were competing for the ball. In the contest, Balogun's studs came down on the back of Muharimovic's calf and onto his ankle. Muharimovic's ankle turned. He went down. Referee Rafael Claus of Brazil looked at the incident in real time. He did not immediately reach for a card. He looked, he assessed, he made a judgment, and then VAR official Juan Soto intervened. Claus was sent to the monitor. The stadium waited. American fans who had been celebrating the goal and the 2-0 lead and the prospect of a clean night in the knockout round watched their head coach stand at the edge of the technical area with the expression of a man who already understood what was coming. The red card came out, straight, not a second yellow, straight red. Balogun's face said everything. He looked at the referee, he looked at his teammates, he looked at the card. He trudged toward the tunnel with the specific bewildered devastation of a player who knows he was not trying to hurt anyone, and cannot understand why the decision being applied to him looks so different from decisions he has watched others receive throughout this tournament. Because that is the comparison that exploded across social media before Balogun had even reached the dressing room. Lionel Messi, Argentina versus Algeria. The challenge on Isamendi that had ESPN pundits calling it 100% a red card. That had the VAR team review the footage and conclude there was nothing to act on. That had Algeria file a formal complaint with FIFA, and generated more controversy than almost any other single incident of the first 2 weeks of the tournament. Now here was Balogun, in a challenge that multiple people watching described as less deliberate than the Messi incident. In a challenge that Pochettino said clearly showed no intention. In a challenge that Weston McKennie, one of the United States' most experienced midfielders, said he had seen replicated across multiple matches at this tournament, without a card being shown. And Balogun had a red card. Pochettino was asked about it directly in the press conference. He was asked about both challenges. His answer was unambiguous. Then, he said the sentence that became the defining quote of the night. It's never a red card. Never. If the intention is to damage the opponent, okay, I understand. But that was a normal action in football. That you are fighting for the ball and your feet land. McKennie's description was less diplomatic. He called the inability to appeal the decision bogus. He said there had been many other plays like that throughout the tournament on other players that a card wasn't given at all. He said he didn't understand the protocol of how they came to the conclusion. He said it was disappointing. Neither of them said the word corruption. Neither of them accused anyone of deliberate bias. Both of them were describing something more specific than that, and in some ways more troubling. A system that is supposed to deliver consistency, delivering something that feels, to the people most directly affected by it, like inconsistency. A technology that was built to remove doubt, producing a result that generated immediate and specific doubt from players, coaches, and the millions of people watching. That doubt has a context at this World Cup that makes it more significant than it would be in isolation. Because the Balogun decision is not the first time a major refereeing controversy has defined a match at the 2026 tournament. Algeria filed a formal complaint about the Messi incident. Ghana's coach Carlos Queiroz stood in front of cameras and asked whether VAR was still working, saying it had gone for a coffee after a penalty wasn't given against England. Germany had a Jonathan Tah goal disallowed in extra time against Paraguay, in a VAR review that ESPN's own analysis described as incorrectly called. Uruguay were eliminated from the group stage in circumstances that generated debate about officiating standards. Match by match, week by week, the 2026 World Cup has accumulated a ledger of refereeing controversies, in which the consistency of VAR's intervention has been questioned. Not by fringe voices. By coaches, by former officials, by senior players, by the organizations that cover football professionally. And now the host nation's best attacking player is suspended from the round of 16 because of a decision that his own coach, in a press conference, described as never a red card. Here is the detail that makes this situation uniquely painful for the United States. Because of the specific category of the red card, violent conduct, applied through a VAR review, the one-match ban is automatic and cannot be appealed. If Balogun had been sent off for violent conduct leading to a 3-match ban, FIFA would have the ability to hear an appeal and potentially reduce the suspension. The longer the ban, the more process exists to contest it. Balogun's one-match ban cannot be touched. It cannot be reviewed. It cannot be overturned. Pochettino, learning this for the first time in the press conference from reporters rather than officials, initially said he wanted to appeal and would look into the options. He was informed in real time that there were no options. He absorbed that information with the visible recalibration of a man who had believed there was something he could do and was discovering there wasn't. We need to talk about if we can appeal, he had said. It would be fair to appeal and demonstrate that it wasn't a red card. And then, the reporters told him what the rules said. Belgium will face an American team without Folarin Balogun, the leading scorer, the forward around whom Pochettino's entire attacking structure was built. The player who had made this United States team genuinely dangerous in front of goal, in a way that previous American World Cup squads had struggled to be. Ricardo Pepi, who started 2 group stage matches, is the most direct replacement. Haji Wright, who has barely played in the tournament, is another option. Pochettino can move Christian Pulisic into a false 9 role. None of these are solutions that replicate what Balogun provides. They are contingencies. They are the coach making the best of a situation that the red card created. Belgium, who had drawn with Uruguay and Iran before defeating New Zealand, know Balogun won't be there on Monday. They are already adjusting their preparation around his absence. The tactical advantage that comes from knowing exactly what the opposing forward line looks like is one that the Belgians have now received as a gift from 64th minute in Santa Clara. And here is what nobody at FIFA has addressed in any of the post-match communications: the Messi comparison. Not because the two incidents are identical, because they are not. Because the principle at the center of both involves the same question. In a tournament where the clear and obvious error standard is supposed to guide VAR intervention, why does that standard appear to produce different outcomes in different matches for challenges that observers described in similar terms? Pochettino did not accuse anyone of protecting Messi. He said, "For me, both were not a red card." And the football world looked at both incidents and found it difficult to explain the difference in how they were handled. Balogun walked into the dressing room after his red card and sat in a locker room while his teammates played out the final 26 minutes without him. Malik Tillman scored a stunning free kick. The United States won 2-0. They sang in the locker room afterward, "Take me home, country roads," echoing through the corridor outside. Pochettino said afterward that Balogun was sad and disappointed by the decision, but happy the team had advanced. He said Balogun was relieved the United States were through. He said he is a team player who feels connected to this group. What he did not say, because managers rarely say it directly, was whether Balogun cried in that locker room while his teammates celebrated. Whether the specific injustice of scoring a goal and being sent off in the same match, in the same knockout game, for something your own coach calls a normal action in football, sits differently than any other form of tournament heartbreak. Balogun is only the third player in World Cup history to score in a knockout match and be shown a red card in the same game. The first was Ronaldinho in Brazil's 2002 quarterfinal against England. The second was Zinedine Zidane in the 2006 World Cup final against Italy in the most famous red card in the tournament's history. He is not in the same context as either of those moments, but he is on the same list. And the list, in this tournament, at this moment, means he will not be in Seattle on Monday. Sometimes a World Cup is not decided by a goal, sometimes it is decided by one referee walking to a monitor, one replay reviewed from one angle, one card produced from one pocket, and one player sitting alone in a locker room while his teammates sing, wondering what Monday would have looked like if the 64th minute had gone differently. What do you think? Was the red card justified, or did VAR apply a standard to Balogun that it failed to apply to others at this tournament? And if the United States lose to Belgium because their best player is suspended for a challenge their own coach calls an accident? What does that say about how this World Cup is being officiated? Leave it in the comments. These are the conversations this channel exists for.